The trade war saga is not over. So long as you have the US empire led by the fascist Donald Trump, it's never going to be over. Things are fluid. By the time you hear this, Trump will probably already have come up with a new way to torment Canadians. Donald Trump is a despised, lying, fascist. There can be no deal unless you force it on him through strength. You have to fight back. But Mark Carney doesn't want to do that. He refuses to use Canada's natural resources, which the US heavily relies on, as a weapon, like oil and potash.
Are you willing to use Canadian energy as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations with the United States?
When you're supplier of a key commodity, you got to think really hard about not supplying.
I don't see the value of doing. I mean, I can understand conceptually, but I don't see the value of it.
The government to date seems, at least publicly, to have been very reluctant to wield critical minerals and energy as a weapon as part of this trade war. Is that going to change now? Are those on the table?
We have a range of other options to protect our industry. First and foremost, what are we looking to do with our counter tariffs? It's to protect industries that are disadvantaged by the American trade action. And then we think about matching in ways that have the least negative impact on Canadians.
Let's go a bit down memory lane. The following are direct requests from Donald Trump that Mark Carney agreed to without getting anything in return. Carney dropped reciprocal tariffs levied against the US for the trade war that they started. Mark Carney dropped the digital services tax, one way of saying he cut taxes on US tech giants. Mark Carney agreed to spend 5% of GDP on a NATO-style military, and all that money's not going to defend against the US empire. Every dollar spent on the NATO-style military is a dollar spent to assist the US empire currently led by a fascist. Elbows up. Mark Carney dropped a streamer's tax, cutting taxes on large US tech companies. Carney gave away like half the revenue for the new Gordie Howe Bridge that Canada paid 100% of the cost for. Embarrassing. The provincial booze bans have probably been the most effective retaliation against the United States throughout this trade war. The only thing that Carney doesn't have the ability to concede on. At a point in time where the US empire and Donald Trump are the weakest, the empire is in rapid decline, increasingly becoming more isolated internationally. Trump is at record unpopularity. US midterms are in November. Republicans are slated to get destroyed. It could lead to something like impeachment or actual accountability for the fascist. Inflation, gas prices are out of control. The US military is literally crumbling at the seams. Iran's defeat of the US has exposed it as a paper tiger. Sailors on a US aircraft carrier are trying to themselves because they're under torturous conditions for 2/3 of a year at sea to fight the Epstein class's war against Iran. The US has pretty much run out of specific types of missiles. The age of US aggressive world policing and their petrodollar empire is over. The sooner Canadians accept that, the quicker we can move on to a better, safer, brighter future. Why on God's green earth should Canada concede right now at a time of the US empire's immense weakness?
It's part of the point I made to President Trump when we spoke a few days ago, is that it's not just he's winning the argument, he's won the argument.
Canada's government should not be conceding. It makes no sense. It makes no sense until you realize that Mark Carney does not serve Canadians, the Canadian working class. Mark Carney serves capital owners, and their interests first and foremost. Wealthy elite enabled by corrupt politicians are crushing the working class. Working class material conditions continue to degrade day by day. Young people say they can't afford to get married, can't afford to have kids, can't afford to buy a home, can't afford groceries. The societal contract is breaking down. Shit's not working. These issues, contradictions, are the conclusion of capitalism, placing capital interests over the needs of humans, and literally destroying the planet in the process. Subscribe. Do it. Canada, led by Carney, has been the US's little toady, cheering them on throughout their generational crimes against humanity.
Canada Strong will help make America great again.
Carney has provided Israel with material and political support throughout their genocide and apartheid of Palestinians. In a just world, Mark Carney's at The Hague, okay? Carney supported Trump's war against Venezuela. He supported the kidnapping of Maduro, the head of state of Venezuela.
The removal of Mr. Maduro is welcome news.
Carney straight up supports his own kidnapping and imprisonment by the US empire. That's you, big dog. Carney abandoned Cuba throughout the US empire's cruel blockade of the island. Frequent blackouts, food shortages, starvation. Carney's just idly watching this humanitarian crisis go by, enabling Donald Trump's disgusting siege. Supporting the starvation of an island of 10 million people is called evil, okay? Carney supported the 12-day war against Iran. Carney has leaned into and accelerated the economic warfare against the Iranian people. At the request of Israel and the US empire, of course, Carney supports the US-Israeli war of aggression against Iran and their allies.
Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and we reaffirm Israel's right to defend itself.
A war that started with a US Tomahawk missile over 150 school children and their teachers in the town of Manab in southern Iran. Carney says it was worth it. Disgusting. Also worth it, apparently, is the of Ayatollah Khamenei, an 86-year-old head of state and religious leader for tens of millions of people. Carney straight up supports the of heads of state. That's you, big dog. You're justifying your own by the United States empire. He's throwing away sovereignty, rules, international law, all to appease the fascist. Get this. Mark Carney says,
We are also exploring the next phase of that defense with the United States. That could include what's called the Golden Dome. I think there are certainly many scenarios where it will be in the right interest of Canada. We will be a willing participant.
Canada will be a willing participant to Donald Trump's Israel-inspired Golden Dome. Canadians want nothing to do with Donald Trump's Golden Dome. All it does is put Canada's future into the nasty little hands of a fascist volunteering yourself to be invaded and occupied by the US empire so you can be a missile sponge for them. If you tell someone in Canada that Mark Carney's open to that, they'll think you're making it up. But it's true. I literally can't think of a worse idea. Crazy. Time will tell on what Mark Carney's going to do, but his track record shows he's going to capitulate to Donald Trump and the US empire, ushering in the end of Canadian sovereignty, the death of the Canadian state, or the birth of the 51st state. Mark Carney plans on increasing fossil fuel output, which is just straight up a climate crime. It's an intergenerational crime to squeeze as much money out of the fossil fuel industry to feed the insatiable desires of the capital-owning class, literally burning the planet to the ground for some short-term gains in the market. It's disgusting. The two biggest threats to Canada right now are anthropogenic climate change, the disasters that it brings, and the destabilization coming from south of the border, the declining US empire. And Mark Carney is doing all to address either of them. He's actually leaning into these threats because he serves capital. Carney's decisions are rapidly converting Canada into a militarized petrostate subservient to the US empire. All of these decisions by the federal government paint a very clear picture. A picture of subservience to the US empire, their foreign policy, and subservience to the guy at the top. A fascist, lying You can't make this shit up. Carney's choices have made Canada and the world a less safe place. Contradictions will keep worsening, and the deranged, demented fascist will continue to do deranged, demented things. the fascist-aligned CEO world banker elite will be remembered for collaborating with the fascists and accelerating climate collapse. Governments, at least in theory, should minimize harm, promote social cohesion, development, education, and peace. With Carney's decisions, he has done exactly the opposite of all of those. This is why we need socialism. We need a form of government that actually uplifts the working class and tries to improve the lives of everyday people. Consider going to the Carnival Against Capitalism, a protest against Carney's horrendous policies that are accelerating climate collapse and supporting a fascist path. If you like my content and want to hear more, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. That's all for today, folks. Until next time, take care, peace, and love. Free Palestine. Bye-bye.